setback for President Biden's policy on immigration. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the administration from lifting Title 42 restrictions per COVID. Remember, that's why they were put in. At the southern border with Mexico, ahead of officially ending them, which is set to happen on May 23rd. So a victory there. This comes as the U.S. Supreme Court today is hearing arguments on whether the administration acted properly in trying to end the Remain in Mexico policy in the first place. That was put in place, as you know, under the Trump administration, and it was working. Meanwhile, a surreal moment when 21 illegal immigrants were found hidden inside 2 wooden crates during a traffic stop in Texas. Shocking discovery, which took place earlier this month when state troopers and U.S. Border Patrol agents pulled over a pickup truck, stopping the human smuggling attempt into Laredo. Casey, I'll start with you. I know you've got some numbers on all of this just to put us on that playing field that says this is only getting worse.
They're expecting 18,000 illegal immigrants to come across the border daily. That's over double of what they're currently seeing with 7,000. But it's really coming down to the fact that every state is going to be a border state until something is done and they get a handle on this. You have the drugs, you have the trafficking. I mean, this is scary stuff. Being a soon-to-be mom, this is scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the point that you're making, too, Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Republican of Tennessee, had originally said on Fox News, you know, every state is a border state. And it seemed like maybe an early comment all those months ago. She is proven right. I probably say it every day. She's proven right because of the amounts of fentanyl and some of the things that you're talking about. Emily?
Yeah, that's right. And just to echo that, so that's why, 19 states joined in on the original 3 states to try to have an injunction issued from the courts to stop the release of 42 or whatever, to keep it in place, right? And we now know that the judge indeed ruled, yes, you cannot take it away, right? And this is really significant. So first of all, the decision has not yet been published. We don't know exactly the reasoning. We don't know the scope as a result. But we know that the judge at least agreed with some of those plaintiffs' arguments, saying, keep it in place. And interestingly, one of their arguments, which was separate than I think the really, frankly, the legal arguments, which does sort of have, it acknowledges the power indeed is in the hands of the governing administration to make those calls, was the strain on local resources. And that is why the governors of states as far north as Iowa have weighed in and saying our communities are being absolutely devastated right now because of the crisis on the southern border. Regardless if we touch the southern border physically, our communities are being overrun with terrible problems that stem from the open flow on the southern border.
Can I ask you, too, if there is anything evidentiary that they would be looking at in all of this that would have to do with a plan B? Because a lot of times that the law may not be broad enough per case to say, we're waiting for you guys to come up with a better idea. But there can sometimes, I guess we'll have to wait to read it, but there can sometimes, from what I've read, be mention of the fact that it's going to get a lot worse, and you don't have anything to deal with that in place yet. That infrastructure is not there.
That's right, and I think that was part of those plaintiffs' argument when they said to the federal government, when you take away, they said like it was the last stopgap measure we have, essentially obstructing that flow, and there is nothing else in place that we've heard from the federal government. The burden then would have been on the government to respond and say, oh no, we actually have X, Y, and Z. Clearly, if they did, it wasn't successful, or it wasn't deemed appropriate or strong enough, but I don't think there, frankly, was even another option.
Yeah, crickets is what we're talking about. I come to you, Kaylee, because you saw in some of the video, I don't know if our team can put it back up, we got a wall. By the way, Kamala Harris' state, California, has a wall.
Yes.
And it works. But we didn't get to finish those structures. And now we're up against something that looks like a surge that is beyond our capacity. What do you think about the talk of the wall coming back? Does that come back into politics?
Oh, it certainly does. And the nonsensical statement that walls don't work, they do actually work. But that's what the White House press secretary tells us. That aside, I think something else that could come back is the migrant protection protocols. This is very important, Harris. There's a second case. It's before the Supreme Court, Biden versus Texas. Trump put these procedures in place, basically saying if you want to apply for asylum, by all means do it, but you have to wait in Mexico. Biden rolled that back despite, get this, He voted for it in 1996, so he's the reason we even have this. It was unlawful the way he rolled it back. The Supreme Court's deciding it, so I think that may be a saving grace. You have the MPP come back. It could do a lot in terms of stymieing immigration. One last point just to make. Bishop Evans, we talked about him yesterday, that heroic National Guardsman. The White House finally acknowledged that death, the passing of this hero, but it was in response to a question from Fox News. That was a huge fumble. Address that immediately. Don't fumble before you get to the podium.
Watch it. We have time.
Exactly.
Let's watch Psaki at the lectern.
Of course, we are mourning the loss of his life, and we are grateful for the work of every National Guardsman. I would note that the National Guard work for the states, and so he is an employee of the Texas National Guard, and his efforts and his operation were directed by there, not by the federal government.
Joe Concha.
The White House should have issued a statement, not been asked a question and then respond to it.
Oh, you mean days ago?
Days ago, yes, when this happened.
Friday.
Right? Even go to the man's funeral, perhaps, right? He was working and tried to save two people, and then he drowned.
The Vice President has time.
Yeah, apparently, clearly, if she has a staff even at this point. I'll be quick. It's amazing how often this administration is wrong on every issue. On Title 42, on inflation, they call it transitory. Then they call it Putin's fault, right? On crime, they say, well, it's because Republicans didn't support Build Back Better, and that's why now you're seeing these rates go up. No. On education, they take the side of teachers' unions over parents. No. On the border, they blame Donald Trump, as you just said before, and he was trying to build a wall that's not going to work, and we were given a broken system. No. So every time they're wrong, and now on Title 42, their own party, again, is revolting against them.
Yes.
And it's just going to lead to another black eye for an administration that looks like Rocky at the end of Rocky IV.
In Texas, you've got Democrats lining up now. We always knew Kirsten Sinema. She's been very strong on this. She's from down in Tucson, which is closer to the border.
Yeah.
But also Henry Cuellar from Texas and Mark Kelly.
Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona. You know, we learned last hour from Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Republican in Texas, who took that picture of Bishop Evans' armor that he took off, body armor, to go save those two illegals in the water. Yeah. We learned from him that he was raised by his grandparents. You know, we knew, Emily, that he'd already served in Kuwait and Iraq, and he's only 22. I mean, this was somebody who had a real heart and soul for service. But let's pray for the grandparents.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
And Gonzalez asked of that, and I promised him we would, and on Outnumbered, we keep a pretty tight prayer circle, so let's do that.
Sounds good.
Amen.